My sister and I graduated from college at the same time, but only her tuition was covered by our parents. She earned it, they said, but somehow, I didn't. They came to our graduation, but the moment my name was announced, their smiles faltered and a strange stiffness settled on their faces. My name is Avery Green. I was born just 3 minutes after my sister, Lily, but apparently, those 3 minutes were enough to set our lives on completely different paths in our parents' eyes. David and Karen Green, our mom and dad, treated us like we were anything but equals. We're twins, sure, but you'd never know it from the way they acted. To them, it felt like only one of us was truly their daughter, and it sure as heck wasn't me. From as far back as I can remember, I noticed the difference in how they treated us. If Lily started crying, Mom would drop whatever she was doing and rush over to scoop her up, whisper sweet words, and hold her tight. But if I fell down and skinned my knee, all I got was, "You're a tough girl, Avery. Just be patient." She'd hand me a napkin, pat me on the back, and send me off to play. Even as a little kid, I realized that if I ever wanted to be seen, I had to do something big. But the more I tried to prove myself, the less they seemed to care. But if Lily did something small, even something trivial, they'd light up like she'd just won an Olympic medal. I kept my jealousy hidden. It's hard for a kid to understand why love gets handed out unevenly. I used to cry into this old, beat-up teddy bear my grandmother gave me. She was the only one who really saw me, really cared. She lived in a different city, so we didn't see her much. But whenever she came to visit, it felt like I was finally being hugged by the sun. A kind of warmth my parents never gave me. Once we started school, the favoritism only became clearer. Lily would put together some simple craft made of cardboard and paper, nothing special, really, and my mom would gush like it was museum-worthy. "This is incredible, Lily. How did you make it so perfectly? You're amazing." Meanwhile, I was starting to do well in writing. I earned certificates in drawing contests and even wrote little stories my teachers complimented me on. But at home all I got was a cold, "Well, good job, Avery. Just don't let it go to your head." As we got older, the divide just kept getting wider. My parents always insisted Lily needed more support. "She's more delicate, more emotional," they said. And me? I was independent and capable. According to them, I'd figure it all out on my own. I guess they thought I didn't need them. Eventually, I accepted it. I stopped expecting any kind of support from them. But accepting it didn't mean I gave up. If anything, it fueled me. Each time they ignored me, I just pushed myself harder, maybe to show them I mattered, or maybe just to remind myself that I did. When senior year rolled around and it came time to choose a college, we both ended up deciding on accounting. Total coincidence, honestly. I was drawn to it because I liked structure and numbers. I liked things that made sense. I never really saw Lily having any interest in that kind of stuff, but she said, "Well, it's a popular major. We'll see where it goes." Our parents jumped in immediately. They paid for her tuition in full, right away, no questions asked. So she won't have to stress about money. Let her focus on school, they said. As for me, the second money came up, they turned to me and said, "You're smart, Avery. You'll probably get a scholarship. Maybe find a part-time job if needed. You'll figure it out." Part of me was hurt. They were willing to throw thousands of dollars at Lily, but I had to hustle just to earn my place. Still, another part of me saw it as a challenge. If they believed I was strong, then I was going to show just how strong I could be. Once college started, I jumped headfirst into applying for grants, scholarships, anything that could help me shoulder the costs. I looked for student jobs, anything that could ease the financial load. We were enrolled at the same college, but let me tell you, our experiences were worlds apart. Lily had a big, comfy room on campus. Mom and Dad sent her money like clockwork, for textbooks, clothes, meals, even fun. She partied, made friends, lived the kind of carefree college life people talk about. I, on the other hand, found myself a small room in the dorms, nothing fancy. I worked evenings at the library. I signed up for this student program where you could earn a little by cleaning dorm rooms. In whatever quiet moments I carved out, I hit the books, digging deep into accounting, finance, tax law. I was completely drained most days, but I knew this was the only path forward for me. No one was going to hand me anything. If I wanted to succeed, I had to hustle for it. Whenever I bumped into Lily on campus, maybe in the cafeteria or outside the dorms, she'd look me over and say something like, "You seem tired, Avery. Maybe you should manage your schedule better instead of running around so much." I'd just smile, pushing down the sting. There was no point getting upset. This was the road I had chosen. Deep down, I had this voice in me that kept whispering, "Keep going, Avery. You've got something special ahead of you." As the semesters went by, I found my rhythm. I started thinking beyond just coursework, realizing I had to start building my future. I applied to internships and eventually landed one at a local auditing firm. Technically, I was just the helper, fetching coffee, making copies, sorting files. But to me, that was golden. It gave me a first-hand look at how the industry worked. Over time, they started trusting me with small tasks that actually required skill, and I took on everything they threw my way with enthusiasm. A lot of students at our college never even tried to land a spot at places like that. But I knocked on every door I could. And when one opened, I didn't waste the opportunity. That first summer, I found out I could fast-track some of the certified public accountant exams. I realized that if I pushed myself hard enough, I could knock a few out before I even graduated. Around that same time, I met Professor Whitaker during an elective. He taught a tough course on international financial reporting standards, and even though it sounded intense, I signed up anyway. After the first class, he came up to me and asked, "Avery, you seem to have a solid foundation. Where did you study before?" I smiled and said, "Nowhere special. I just read a lot. I try to figure things out on my own." "Do you enjoy accounting?" "Absolutely. I think when the numbers are in order, it brings structure to both business and life." He chuckled. "That's an interesting way to put it." Then he said, "I'm actually looking for an assistant, someone to help prepare materials and occasionally review student work. If you're interested, let me know." I was over the moon. I told him I'd be honored. I rushed back to my dorm that night and called my mom, hoping for a little pride in her voice. Instead, she said, "Well, that's good, Avery." Then she added, "Lily just got invited to a professor's party at his country house. There will be lots of important people there. You're both doing well." I let out a heavy sigh. In my parents' eyes, me becoming a professor's assistant and Lily getting invited to a party seemed like equal wins. I was learning to accept that this might always be the way it was with them. One night, while closing up the library after my shift, I saw an email pop up. The subject line read, "Jackson Reed Scholarship, Information Letter." At first, I didn't even register what it was. Turns out, it was a major national scholarship, one of the most prestigious awards in the accounting field. Only 4 students across the entire country get chosen each year. The standards were sky high: top grades, leadership roles, extracurriculars, recommendations, the whole package. I hadn't even applied. But Professor Whitaker must have submitted my portfolio behind the scenes. He had this habit of recommending students quietly so they wouldn't stress about the pressure beforehand. The email said I'd made it past the first review and was invited to submit a formal application. They were impressed with what they saw so far. I sat there, stunned. Read it over and over. Then it hit me, you have to go for this. I didn't tell anyone. By then, I'd learned to keep my goals to myself. For the next several weeks, I poured myself into the application, writing essays, gathering documents, completing tasks, and collecting recommendation letters. Professor Whitaker helped me every step of the way. He reviewed my drafts, pointed out mistakes, and encouraged me to aim higher. When everything was ready, I hit send. Then, I pushed it out of my mind. I kept my head down, working, studying, interning. 2 months later, after yet another long night at the library, I checked my email and found a letter. Congratulations. You are one of the 4 winners of the Jackson Reed Scholarship. I stared at the screen, rereading those words like they might disappear. I felt a flood of emotion, joy, pride, disbelief, and something else too. That quiet inner voice spoke again, calm and certain. See, Avery? You really did it. I closed my eyes and nearly cried, overwhelmed by everything I was feeling. For the first time, it hit me, no one could ignore me now. I know it might sound a little cocky, but honestly, being seen, being acknowledged, that's all I ever wanted growing up. The awards ceremony had been announced a couple weeks ahead of time. It was being held at one of the top universities in the country. Over the phone, one of the organizers told me, "You should bring your parents. This is going to be a proud moment for them." I hesitated. A big part of me didn't want to invite them at all. I was scared it'd be just another moment where I got brushed off. But deep down, the little girl in me still hoped maybe, just maybe, they'd finally be proud. So I dialed the home phone. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I was selected for one of the top national scholarships in accounting. There's going to be an award ceremony, and they're asking if my parents can attend. "Really?" she said, sounding surprised. "When is it?" "In 1 week. It's in another city. But I'll check with you to make sure it works for your schedule. They really want you both there." Her voice stayed flat. "Okay, we'll try to come." I hung up, feeling hollow. I told myself, even if they show up, at least they'll see it with their own eyes. Maybe something will finally shift. But I wasn't holding on to that childish hope anymore. The day of the ceremony came. I got there early and slipped into the only decent dress I owned, a simple black one with a clean cut, nothing flashy. The other scholarship winners were buzzing around, nervous and excited, just like me. They ushered us into the hall and explained how things would go. Each student would be introduced, a short speech would be read, and we'd be handed our awards. I found my seat up front. The room started filling up with guests. That's when I spotted them, Lily sitting next to our parents. She was dressed to the nines, holding some fancy handbag in her lap. Mom and Dad looked a bit out of place, like they weren't quite sure why they were there. I avoided their eyes. I needed to stay focused. The ceremony started. One by one, names were called. Each student had a little story. Someone had built software for tax optimization, another had been recognized for international student projects. I clapped for them all, trying to keep my own nerves in check. Then my name was called. The university director stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, our next honoree is a symbol of grit, determination, and independence." Without financial support from her family, she worked her way from cleaning dorms and shelving books in the library to becoming one of the top students in her program. Her professors describe her as someone with an iron will. Please welcome Avery Green. The applause hit me like a wave. I heard people standing up. My whole body flushed with heat as I got to my feet and started walking toward the stage. I glanced out at the crowd and saw my parents. Mom's face was blank, almost cold. Dad looked more confused than anything, like he was just realizing this was a big deal. Lily's expression caught me off guard. She looked stunned, maybe even a little jealous. It was like, for the first time in their lives, they were actually seeing me. On stage, the director shook my hand, handed me the award, and offered a few kind words. We took a photo. Then I walked back to my seat while the crowd kept clapping. For once, it felt like life itself was standing up and saying, "We see you now." After the ceremony, I was swarmed. Professor Whitaker came over to congratulate me, and so did other faculty members and company reps. They handed me business cards, offered internships, asked if I was interested in joining their firms. I smiled, soaking it all in. This, I thought, is what it feels like to earn your moment. That's when I saw my parents and Lily walking over. I took a deep breath. "Avery," Mom said with a tight smile, "congratulations." "I guess. But why didn't you tell me it was this serious? I looked at her and said, calm as ever, have you ever actually listened when I tried? There wasn't any bitterness in my voice, just a tired kind of truth. I wasn't trying to start a fight, I just didn't have anything left to sugarcoat. Mom's face fell. Dad tried to jump in. We always believed in you. We just didn't know you needed help. We figured you could handle things on your own. You never asked if I needed help, I replied. It was easier for you to tell yourselves that Avery could do anything. But even strong people want support sometimes. Mom turned to Lily, confused. My sister stood there quietly, unsure of what to say. Then she spoke up. Avery, I didn't know you were applying for this scholarship. I thought your tuition was paid too. I looked her in the eyes. Really? Did it ever cross your mind to ask how I'd been paying for school? Or rent? Have you ever stopped to think that you and I haven't lived the same life? She gave a helpless shrug. I guess I was too caught up in my own stuff. Exactly, I said. And no one ever questioned it. But I'm not here to argue. I turned and walked away. I had a lot of emotions bubbling up inside me that day, but surprisingly, none of them were about my family. They were all about me. It finally hit me, this was the moment I let go of that old dream, the one where I believed if I worked hard enough, my parents would finally see me, finally love me the way I'd always wanted. That evening, the university hosted a small reception for the scholarship winners. Teachers, investors, students, and some of the families were there. Mine had stuck around, though we only bumped into each other by the refreshment table. While I was standing there, a representative from a major auditing firm came up to me. Miss Green, he said, we'd love to talk to you about a potential job opportunity. Your references and achievements are impressive. Could you join us at our table? I glanced across the room and saw my family, Mom, Dad, and Lily, standing off in the corner, looking uncomfortable. They kept glancing my way but didn't move. I turned toward the investors and walked to their table without hesitation. We dove into conversation. They told me they were considering me for a junior auditor position in their Chicago office. That was the dream. Big city, fast pace, real audit work, I wanted all of it. The next night, the university held a formal scholarship dinner. My parents decided to attend that too. At dinner, my mom finally tried to talk to me. Avery, she said, we know we haven't always been the best at showing it, but we love you and Lily equally. Maybe we just didn't have our priorities in the right place. I looked at her calmly and said, it's not really about love, Mom. It's about how I always felt like I had to earn your praise while Lily got it just by existing. I kept trying, and you kept not seeing it. But honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm not used to asking for approval now. Dad let out a deep sigh and reached out like he was going to pat my shoulder. Forgive us, sweetheart. We didn't realize how much you were hurting. I'm not angry, I replied. I just see things differently now. I'm making choices that are right for me. Lily sat off to the side, fiddling with her napkin. Every so often, she glanced up at me like she was seeing me for the first time. There was confusion in her eyes, and maybe, just maybe, a little envy. For once, I was the one people were paying attention to. I could tell it didn't sit well with her. Several days after the ceremony, I officially accepted the offer from the Chicago office. As the semester came to a close, I started slowly packing up for the move. Since then, my relationship with my family has pretty much faded into a few polite check-ins. We'll talk occasionally, brief conversations like, how's work going? Good, I'm on a new project. Okay, we're glad to hear it. That's about it. Lily messaged me once or twice, not to congratulate me or anything, but to complain. She said our parents had started expecting her to be more independent now. They say if Avery could do it, you can too, she wrote. I couldn't help but laugh a little. I had shaken up their comfortable little world, and suddenly Lily had to live up to expectations that were never placed on her before. I'll never forget that moment in the auditorium when the university director said my name and everyone turned to look. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. And I had done it all on my own, no favors, no handouts, no shortcuts. Just grit, work, and a whole lot of heart. That feeling still drives me. Even now, as I work in a major firm, taking on new challenges every week, nothing feels more daunting than the years I spent in my sister's shadow, chasing the attention of people who couldn't, or wouldn't, see me. Now, looking back on it all, I understand something clearly. There comes a time when you stop begging for love and start giving it to yourself. I want to help others now, people like me who grew up without a net of family support. I want them to know that everything really is possible if you have the drive, the goals, and the belief in yourself. Even if, as a kid, all you ever heard was, "You're smart, you'll figure it out," and never got a helping hand. Because strength comes from those empty places, from the wounds, the silence, and the love you never received. Those things can become your fuel. When I finally graduated and got my diploma, my parents didn't show up. Mom called and said, "You'll be fine without us, right?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, of course I will." My grandmother called me, the one who always treated me with love and kindness. "I'm so proud of you, Avery," she said. "You're a wonderful granddaughter. I wish I could have been there to see you walk across that stage, but you know I'm always with you in spirit." Her words almost brought me to tears. In that moment, I realized it wasn't my parents I had wanted there, it was her. I wanted her to see me standing on that stage, smiling like I'd never smiled before. But she was getting older, and travel wasn't easy for her anymore. Still, that phone call? It was the warmest, most meaningful part of my entire graduation day. And I was deeply, deeply grateful for it. A couple of months after graduation, I was in the middle of packing my bags for Chicago when Lily showed up. She had driven out to campus on her own, which surprised me. She hadn't visited in a long time. She walked into the room, sat down on the edge of my bed, and after a pause, said, "Avery, maybe you don't have to move so far away. Our parents want us to stay close." I looked at her and answered evenly, "Our parents never really cared what I was doing before. Now suddenly they want me nearby?" She hesitated, fidgeting with the edge of a pillow. "I'm just scared we won't talk anymore." I let out a quiet breath. "We haven't really talked in a long time anyway, Lily. And you know that." Her eyes dropped to the floor, and after a second, she stood up with a sigh. I noticed something in her expression that I'd never seen before, this lost, almost childlike uncertainty. For the first time, it seemed like she didn't know where she stood. Maybe it was finally hitting her that her comfort, her confidence, was built on always being the favorite. And now, suddenly, that balance had shifted. I was the one with the job offers, with a future laid out. She was still finishing college, unsure of what came next. "Good luck to you, Avery," she said quietly before turning and walking out the door. I stared at the closed door for a few seconds, feeling something I didn't expect. It was a kind of quiet sadness. We used to be just two little girls, twins, laughing at silly things, not caring who was born a few minutes before the other. But life had split us. We were raised differently, and we turned into different people. Now we were just two strangers who happened to grow up in the same family. When I moved to Chicago, I threw myself into work. The rhythm was relentless at first. I spent my time learning new systems, preparing reports, sitting in meetings, handling clients, and soaking up every bit of knowledge I could about auditing. Even when it was tough, I loved the energy. I liked being surrounded by people who were sharp and driven, who spoke in numbers and deadlines. I was finally where I wanted to be, building a career on my own terms. And I didn't need my parents to clap for me anymore. And in a strange way, I was grateful for the struggle. That hard road shaped me. It taught me that the most important recognition doesn't come from anyone else, it comes from within. Years went by. I completed my studies, gained experience, and eventually earned a promotion. My parents still reach out now and then, text messages like, "How are you doing, daughter? It's a shame you don't visit." And I usually respond with something short like, "I'm doing fine, thank you." Lily still pops up from time to time, photos from parties, occasional messages where she complains about how hard it is to find a job. I try to be helpful. I tell her, update your resume. Take some online courses. Build your skills. But she usually brushes it off. Says it all sounds boring. Somewhere along the way, I realized I had a choice. I could keep bending myself in half for love and recognition, or I could start living for myself. Yes, family is supposed to be about unconditional love. But in my case, those family ties felt more like chains, pulling me down, suffocating me, making me feel small. And I finally decided to let go.